There's a rig sitting in a private storage yard outside Prescott, Arizona, that most Toyota engineers won't confirm exists, and the ones who will only talk about it off the record. 6 wheels, 1 badge, 0 explanation. Call it obsession if you want, but the people who've actually seen the Rigwild 6x6 in person don't talk about it like a truck. They talk about it like a secret they're still deciding whether to keep. Most of them won't even say where they saw it, just that it wasn't at a dealership, and it wasn't supposed to be photographed. Stick around, because by the time we get to the price tag, you'll understand exactly why nobody's rushing to explain this thing publicly. Start with the stance. Where a stock Land Cruiser sits square on 4 points, this one sits wide and low across 6, the rear axle pair tucked so tight to the frame rails that from 30 feet away, in bad light, you'd swear it was a heavy-duty dually. It isn't. The rear fender flares pull out nearly 4 inches past factory width, not for looks, but because the tire package underneath, reportedly 37s on beadlock rings, needs the room. Underneath, the skid plating runs in one continuous sheet from the front differential back past the transfer case, welded rather than bolted, which tells you this wasn't built to be serviced quickly or cheaply. Even the lighting is deliberately understated. No light bar, no chrome accents, just a single row of amber marker lamps along the roofline that only makes sense if you've spent time driving a convoy route at night and needed the truck ahead of you to stay visible without blinding anyone behind it. The paint is a flat, no clear-coat military-spec green Toyota has never once used on a production vehicle, and whoever ordered it clearly didn't want the truck photographing well under showroom lighting. It doesn't. It photographs well in the dirt, at dusk, half covered in its own dust trail, which might be the entire point. One thing bothers me about the front end. Though the factory grille badge sits slightly off-center, maybe 8 millimeters left of where it should be. And on a build this deliberate, that kind of sloppiness doesn't fit the rest of the story. So what's actually pushing all 6 of those wheels, and why does nobody involved want to talk about it on the record? Under the hood, or what's left of the hood clearance after the lift, sits a twin-turbo V6 reportedly making somewhere north of 480 horsepower, paired to a transfer case with a locking center and rear differential setup unlike anything in Toyota's current lineup. Sources close to the build say the crawl ratio clears 91 in low range, which if accurate puts it in territory usually reserved for dedicated rock crawlers, not 6-wheeled Overland trucks weighing close to 9,000 pounds fully loaded. Wading depth is reportedly rated past 40 inches, thanks to a raised snorkel intake and sealed electronics housing that, again, nobody at Toyota will confirm exists. Approach and departure angles reportedly sit close to 38 degrees despite the added length of the third axle, which on paper shouldn't be possible without sacrificing the rear overhang entirely, and yet the rear bumper tucks in tight enough that it doesn't. The number that actually stops people, though, is the one nobody can confirm outright. Word is only 19 of these chassis were ever assembled, each one hand-finished at a satellite shop rather than a Toyota plant. 19, not 1900. The steering, for what it's worth, isn't perfect. There's a noticeable half-second of lag between input and response at low speed that no amount of hand finishing seems to have solved. Past 15 miles an hour, though, that lag disappears entirely, and the truck tracks straighter over broken ground than anything else in its class, 6-wheeled or otherwise. Step inside and the first thing you notice is what's missing: no screen larger than 7 inches, no ambient lighting theatrics, nothing chasing you for attention. The cabin is finished in matte waxed canvas and raw-cut walnut that looks like it belongs in a hunting lodge built in 1962, not a truck assembled within the last 2 years. Even the switchgear feels deliberately restrained toggle switches instead of capacitive panels, each one labeled by hand rather than molded. There's a faint smell of linseed oil in the wood trim, the kind that only shows up when someone's finished the material themselves rather than ordered it pre-sealed from a supplier catalog. Looking at this, it feels less like sitting inside a vehicle and more like sitting inside somebody's private study that happens to have a steering wheel. Here's where it gets strange, though pause for a second, because this next part doesn't fit the rest of the build at all. Tucked into the glove box, unlabeled, is a handwritten maintenance card in Japanese dated 11 months ago, referencing a second unit by chassis number. Nobody involved in this project has explained what that means, and nobody's been asked to, at least not on camera. The sleeping quarters fold from the second row into a queen-sized platform in around 90 seconds, no tools required, and the water system gravity-fed, no pump, no electronics to fail, holds 42 gallons, enough for roughly 5 days without a refill under normal use. None of that has been confirmed by Toyota, And it likely never will be, because as far as any factory paperwork is concerned, the Rigwild 6x6 does not exist. Consider this your on-screen flag, concept unconfirmed. Everything from this point forward is built from parts, testimony, and one very unwilling source, not a press release. The solar setup mounted flush to the roofline, 4 panels wired in series, feeding an insider-sourced lithium bank rated at 400 amp-hours is the kind of detail you'd expect from a boutique Overland outfitter, not a badge-engineered Toyota. Even the comms package is unusual. A hard-mounted satellite unit wired directly into the dash, no phone pairing required. The sort of setup you'd spec for somewhere cell towers don't reach. The recovery gear tells its own story too, a synthetic winch line rated past 20,000 pounds, mounted low and centered rather than up in the bumper, which suggests whoever specced it cared more about a low recovery point than a clean front-end silhouette. Which raises the question none of this has answered yet. Who was this actually built for, and why does the answer matter more than the truck itself? Whatever this costs to build, someone's paying for it, and the number people keep floating, unconfirmed as it is, sits somewhere around $340,000 per unit. Put that next to Earth Roamer's flagship LTI, which starts north of $700,000 for a comparable off-grid platform, and the Rigwild suddenly looks less like a vanity project and more like an undercut. This isn't built for someone chasing a badge, and it clearly isn't built for a daily commute. It's built for someone who wants to disappear for 3 weeks at a time, off any marked road, and doesn't want to explain where they went when they get back, someone who'd rather the truck raise questions than answer them. Registration on a rig like this, if it's even registered at all, would almost certainly run through a shell entity rather than a person's name, which tracks with just how hard this has been to trace. So here's where we land. If the sourcing holds, and if 19 really is the number, the Toyota Rigwild 6x6 isn't a concept truck, it's a truck Toyota built and then quietly decided the world wasn't ready to know about. That obsession I mentioned at the start, it was never really about the wheels, the horsepower, or the missing badge. It was about how far quiet obsession can go before somebody outside the project ever notices 19 units, 1 maintenance card, 0 official acknowledgement, and a paint job specifically chosen to fail every camera it's ever stood in front of. My verdict, real or not, somebody proved it could be done, and that's rarer than the truck itself. This one wasn't built for a driveway or a dealership photo, it was built for the person who'd rather vanish for 3 weeks than explain where they went. If that's you, you already know why you're still watching. If you've seen chassis number 2 or know someone who has, that's exactly the kind of tip this channel exists for. Drop it below. And next time, we're going back to that maintenance card. Because whatever second unit means, we think we finally found it.